Zoro will die. So I was rewatching the Wano arc and I got to this episode. Suddenly something stood out to me and I was like, whoa, is that really death? So I started researching multiple theories and articles to check if I was wrong. While digging through them, it became clear that other fans have also noticed that Oda drops subtle hints about Zoro's potential death. But the truth is, no one really knows when and where Zoro will die. And now there are so many theories suggesting how his death will happen and why it needs to happen. Now let me explain what I found about how Oda sneakily foreshadowed Zoro's upcoming death, while also including the death of two other loved characters. So these hints are hidden within 3 chapter covers, and if you look closely you'll notice they all share 3 similarities: the river, the salmon, and the bear. Okay, to start, what does the river symbolize? According to Japanese Buddhism, there's a concept of the Sanzu River, where it's believed that souls have to cross the Sanzu River to get to the afterlife. Since Zoro, Garp, and Kuma are depicted in the middle of a river on these 3 chapter covers, could this mean they might share the same fate? Like they're all gonna die? Let's talk about Garp for a second. By the way, is he dead or what? We haven't heard much about him since he was captured by Aokiji in chapter 1088, but I think this moment was foreshadowed back in chapter 927's cover, where Garp is shown fighting a bear in the middle of a river. So what if that cover was actually showing us that Garp will soon be in a risky state between life and death? The same applies to Kuma. In chapter 1097's cover, he's also in the middle of a river. To his right is Guinea, probably representing the afterlife, and on the other side, Gyogyo, symbolizing the living world. Since Kuma is no longer human and currently fighting Saturn, it's clear that he's currently in between life and death. And what about Zoro? In chapter 233, Oda did something similar. Zoro is also standing in the middle of a river. The title of this chapter is The World's Highest Authority, which is also the chapter where Gorosei are first introduced. So the title and the river explain that Zoro might face death against the Gorosei, especially Saint Venus. But Zoro's death could also be when he finally communicates with Enma. I'll explain that more in detail before the end of the video. So let me tell you the crazy part first. What does the bear represent? Quick heads up guys, I'm about to crack some dark lore, a dark tradition that exists in Japan, which will show you how everything ties together with Kuma, Garp, and Zoro. One side note, if you can't spot the bear in chapter 1097's cover, remember that Kuma's name literally means bear in Japanese. Crazy. So, there's a Japanese tribe known as Ainu. They believe that bears, particularly brown bears, have a connection to Keman Kamui, the god of the mountains. The Ainu demonstrate their respect through the Ayomante ceremony, often referred to as the bear festival. Here's how the Ayomante ceremony starts. In the winter, hunters go bear hunting, and when they happen to hunt and kill mommy bears, they take their cubs back to the village. The local families then adopt these little bears and treat them like their own kids. They even go so far as sharing their own breast milk with the cub. Hey senpai, does that hurt? Honestly, I'm also confused. Now, when a cub grows older and larger, it's time for the villagers to send it outside and put it in a wooden cage. Yeah, that's right. But in case you're worried, have solace in the fact that they still feed the cub with high quality food. 2 years later, the bear is finally freed. Free! But then, the bear is tied to a post in the center of the village. Wait, there's more. And after that, it's shot with arrows until it dies. Then, the bear's throat is slit and the tribe drinks its blood. They even remove the skin and distribute the meat amongst themselves. Then they place the bear's skull on a spear, turn it into a doll, and this doll becomes an object of respect and worship. By this point, the bear is ritually sacrificed and considered to have been sent off to the realm of gods. I know, dark. By the way, the word Iamante also means to send something or someone off, like sending off the bear. I didn't tell you that in the beginning, on purpose. Sorry. But the real question now is, what is the reason Oda used bears in these chapter covers? And what's the point of this bloody ceremony? The Ainu believe that this ceremony has a direct connection with Kamui Moser, the realm of the gods. They think that the bear will tell the gods all the good times it experienced on Earth. Well, obviously not including the part about the mommy bear's murder, I guess. The bear napping, the caging, the being tied up and being shot with arrows until it dies and so on. Despite all this, the Ainu believe that the gods will be pleased with this treatment of the bears and will continue to provide for them. So given that, what if the reason Oda used bears in these chapter covers is because they represent sacrifice? If we apply this theme to the 3 characters, it turns out that all of their stories involve sacrifices. Kuma gave up his humanity to save Bonnie. Garp sacrificed himself to save Kobe and the rest of his men so they could escape Pirate Island. And Zoro, we've seen him repeatedly risk his life for his friends. Even in the face of death, his friends are always on his mind. So I believe these characters, somewhere down the line, especially Zoro, might ultimately die as a result of their sacrifices. Okay, now that you know the meaning of the bear, you must want to know what the salmon represents. Salmon, known as sake in Japanese, stands for determination, strength, and perseverance. Bro, don't these traits represent Kuma, Garp, and Zoro? Anyways, the salmon's journey upstream is a symbol of resilience and tenacity, seen as a sign of success and good luck in Japanese culture. The salmon's journey mirrors the struggles faced by these characters who, despite their challenges, find success and good fortune in their own unique ways. I mean, think about Kuma. He spent his life as a slave, yet he still found happiness in raising Bonnie, making him a successful or rather a great father. Moving on to Garp, being a Marine is tough, and even though Garp is one of the strongest Marines of all time, there were moments when he felt powerless, especially when he couldn't protect the ones he loved. Even so, Garp is still lucky. He has friends like Sengoku and has mentored strong Marines like Kobe. And despite being on opposite sides, his love for his grandson, Luffy, doesn't really waver. You know, I'm hoping Garp finds a way to reunite with Luffy at some point. But I think when that happens, and I've got a weird feeling about this, it's gonna be tragic. Okay, let's go to Zoro. His heartbreaking past began with a promise, a vow he made with his best friend to duel each other one day and find out who would become the strongest swordsman in the world. However, fate intervened, and after that night, the person he had been working so hard to surpass died suddenly. This left Zoro facing a more formidable and terrifying opponent than Kuina, a monster far stronger than any swordsman he will ever face, the demon that claimed Kuina, Death. Yet just like a salmon, Zoro is a lucky guy. Not because he avoided losing his arm while tossing around cursed swords, but also because despite losing one friend, he found many more on his journey. Along with his promise to Kuina, he also carries the dreams of his new friends. One important thing I realize is that Zoro has been battling death since the very beginning. When we first met him, he was on the brink of execution. The struggle continued through his battles against Mihawk in Little Garden, Arabasta, Thriller Bark, Sabaody, and even during Wano, where death almost claimed his life. But Zoro believes that until he achieves his goal, death cannot claim him. Not today! This is also why he sees himself becoming the king of hell as a way of defying death. That's why he named his sword styles Ashura, Purgatory, and Dead Man's Game. These skills symbolize that Zoro wields death, and it does not claim him. Symbolically, Zoro's battles often involve characters associated with death. First example was his fight against Kid's vice captain, who was literally named Killer. During the Wano arc, this guy was swinging around a scythe, the classical symbol of death. Even after taking a brutal hit on his shoulder from Killer, Zoro just smirks in the face of death. Second, his fight against King. In theory, King has connections to Azrael, the Angel of Death, who like King is often depicted with black wings. The Angel of Death actually suits King as he was Kaido's right-hand man and executioner. And Zoro's victory over him could symbolically represent Zoro's triumph over death once again. But it seems death is growing impatient. Just as Zoro's battle with King concluded, a Shinigami appeared, attempting to claim Zoro's life. However, it did not succeed, not yet. So what is the reason this Grim Reaper appeared? There are two possible theories, and the first one is, Zoro was on drugs. ¿Quieres? It was speculated that the appearance of the Grim Reaper was just a hallucination, caused by drugs that Chopper gave to Zoro. This is possible because, as real research shows, near-death experiences, NDEs, often include visions, sometimes even disturbing ones, like hell or the devil. For the second theory, some believe that the Grim Reaper is the spirit of Enma, who manifested itself as a Shinigami to claim Zoro's life, meaning that the Grim Reaper was an incarnation of Enma, similar to how Klabauterman is the incarnation of ships. Remember this guy in Skypia, the soul of the Going Marie? If ships can have souls, isn't it possible that a sword can also have a soul? Here's how it makes sense. Back in Logtown, it was mentioned that the sword chooses its wielder. And in Wano, according to Kozaburo, a sword has its own personality. A swordsman must master it and bend it to his will. He also mentioned creating a sword, his masterpiece, which he named after the king who watches over hell, the king of the underworld, Enma. By the way guys, even in real life, samurais believed this, that their swords had their own souls that could actually possess them. It was thought that the wielder was merely an instrument that the sword used to complete its task. That's why in Shinto, a sword is often considered the soul of the samurai. Okay, now back to the main topic. What if Zoro finally faces an opponent who can really kill him? There are two characters who might fit this role. The first one ties back to what I mentioned earlier, Zoro's battle with the Gorosei, especially Saint Venus. And what if Zoro potentially dies during this battle? If Enma truly has a soul, it's possible that Zoro could communicate with it, similar to how the soul of Meri talked with Usopp. But what if the only way to communicate with Enma is through dying? If this happens, Zoro might finally turn Enma into a black blade, a sword permanently imbued with haki or willpower. Even after the owner dies, the haki remains within the sword. In the entire series, there are only 2 black blades, Shusui, which Ryuma gave to Zoro during their fight in Thriller Bark, and Yoru, which belongs to Mihawk. Since Tengu Yama Hitetsu mentioned that Enma has not yet been forged into a black blade, Zoro might be the one to achieve this transformation, and I can't wait. This is probably why Oda drew Zoro in the middle of the river on this chapter cover, because somewhere in the future he might fight the Gorosei and also his death. Now, is it really possible to journey to the underworld or to the afterlife in One Piece? Actually, there is one character who managed to do that, Brook. However, his return to life was all thanks to his devil fruit. The same thing happened to Luffy. He died while fighting Kaido and at some point awakened the devil fruit. But I think Zoro could achieve something similar. Not by having a devil fruit that brings him back to life, but through his strong will. A will so powerful that it could even transform Enma into a black blade. And maybe if Zoro survives this, he will conquer death again. But here's another pattern I've noticed. In One Piece, there's a recurring theme about kings, demons, and dragons. King is subordinate to Kaido, who's metaphorically an angel willingly serving a dragon. Way back in Punk Hazard, Zoro also slew a dragon. Well, a fake dragon, but in the Wano arc, he also fought and scarred Kaido, who is essentially an Oni and a dragon. Given Zoro's kingly ambitions, particularly his aspiration to become King of Hell, he has ascended and become a conqueror, a king in his own right. And then we have the Gorosei, who are theoretically demons. Now, if these old men can't defeat Zoro and send him to the afterlife, there is one possible character who is also connected to a demon and dragon that could end Zoro. Dracule Mihawk. Let me explain. Mihawk's name is Dracule, and I'm not sure why Oda threw an E in there, but it's obviously inspired from the infamous Dracula. No, I don't mean the classic blood-sucking vampire Dracula. I'm talking about Vlad III, also known as Vlad the Impaler. The nickname Dracula actually comes from his dad, Vlad Dracul. In their language, Dracul means dragon. So Dracula basically translates to son of the dragon. Fast forward to the modern Romanian language, Dracul now means the devil. So, symbolically, Mihawk's name represents a mix of terrifying monsters, a demon, a dragon, and even a devil, which means that his character is also linked to the theme of death. Mihawk is the final demon Zoro will face, and the question is, will he die? Or what if Zoro awakens something different, something more powerful, a being that has been sealed under his left eye, the demon Ashura?